Hi there, my name is Gaetano, and I wanted to make a little showcase of a build I made that I'm quite proud of. I've been working on this little building for the past couple of days, and I wanted to practice this kind of particular style that I am very interested in nowadays, which is the brick Gothic architecture that you can probably recognize if you have been to places like the Netherlands or Belgium, probably northern Germany, a lot northern Poland as well, and many different places around northern Europe and central Europe as well. And this particular build is inspired by the beautiful architecture of Krakow that I am very fond of and I am quite familiar with. So I wanted to show you around this and talk about some of my inspirations, both YouTube inspirations as well as real life architecture, and how much fun I had recreating those real life buildings as well as creating those little changes so that it all fits well with my little plan and to have as much fun with it as possible, honestly. So first, let's take a look at this front wall right here. So I created this front wall based on the Collegium Maius building of the Jagiellonian University in Krakow. And actually the wall on the right, the one which has the limestone base still visible, is the one that is the most accurate to life representation of the building uh, inside this build in Minecraft. So the proportions of the wall and the gable are uh, more or less the way you can find them in real life. Everything else had to be scaled down. So all the wall that is to the left of that, the brick part, is very thin at this point. It's very short. It only has 4 columns of windows, whereas the real one probably has 8. I wanted to create the building that would be more compact than the original one. First of all, because I didn't want to have something really massive, and second of all, I plan to probably, hopefully, recreate this building at some point in my survival world, in my hardcore survival world. So I actually created the building inside the footprint of the area that I already prepared in my survival world. So this is another way to give myself this little challenge to actually adapt the building that I know from real life to the reality that I set myself into. So this building isn't a total recreation of the Collegium Miles building. As you can see on the left, it also has this little tower that those of you who know Krakow a little bit know isn't around there. The city walls were all demolished around Krakow in the 19th century to give place for this very scenic park that goes around all the way around the old town, and today is known as the Planty, right? And mm, so the part of the wall that would be close to the Collegium Miles is not there today, and this isn't a recreation of that. I actually made a patchwork of different places that I know from Krakow. The main one is the university building in the middle, but to the left, the tower that I placed here is actually the east tower from the section of the walls that is still intact today. The one that was preserved during the demolition in the 19th century, together with 2 other towers and the Barbican, this defensive building in front of the walls. And it was actually during this very interesting period of Krakow's history. It was an effort of the local artists and other prominent enthusiasts of history and of Polish heritage that during the time of the Austrian government, actually, created this movement to actually maybe try to uh, sometimes restore and most of the time just not demolish the old Renaissance and medieval buildings from the historic city center. And it was very good that they did that because most of what you can see in Krakow today, of the mm, beautiful landmarks such as the Sukiennice Cloth House, for example, it was all possible. It was all taken into consideration that it could be demolished by the government to create more space for more modern urban environments. But those people managed to save some of that. So this tower is actually the one that is still intact, and it is together with the Collegium Maius building. I think it's a very interesting type of brick architecture that I am actually very fond of, and that I am quite familiar with living in Poland, which is mostly brick Gothic or brick Renaissance. It depends because some of those buildings are on the edge of those two styles, which are to be honest quite similar still. Of course, the brick Renaissance has all those Italian influences, the influences of the Renaissance, but the type of brick structure that is common across them is yeah, links them together. So this whole build is quite eclectic in that sense, but it's kept in this brick architecture style, right? And it's based mostly on how those buildings look like today. I didn't try to recreate anything from history. I didn't even look at any of those recreations because what I was really interested in was those little details that you can see today when you walk through the city and to capture what you can actually appreciate also in real life. So let's take a closer look at this scene here. What I want to focus on most are probably three things. First of all, is of course the beautiful stepped gable with those white pinnacles. It is one of those. It is definitely the most beautiful gable included in this build that I made, and also that the most beautiful gable in the whole Collegium Maius building in real life. I tried to recreate it quite faithfully, and I am very happy with how it turned out. And also, I am quite a fan of those gables which are common across those Renaissance as well as the Gothic buildings of that period of this region. And I am very interested in those because if you they're quite generic if you don't think about them too much, but if you actually take a closer look at them in real life also in this Minecraft representation only has two or three of them, but if you take a closer look at them in real life you can see and you can appreciate that each one of them is different. The types of those steps on the sides of the gable, as well as those arches which are actually called blind windows because they are here to create the illusion of big windows, which aren't actually made of glass, which aren't actually see-through. There are those little windows put in there so you can actually see through them, but most of them are blind windows. And this is the common thing between this gable and this tower right here, which also has this very interesting design of blind windows across this flat side of the tower because the tower also has the round side with battlements and so on. And I have I really have grown to appreciate the Gothic and Renaissance architecture because the neoclassical buildings that you can see around most cities in this part of the world, in most places, because they were built all around the 18th, 19th, and the beginning of the 20th century, to be honest, in various different uh, types of styles, micro styles, you can call that. But still the main type of building that was being built for those several centuries are just perpendicular lines horizontal lines, squares, rectangles, and so on. Of course, ornamented, but geometrically in a not very creative way, if I may say so. And seeing all those older buildings and how they manage the little details around them, the beautiful gothic arches that are everywhere there are I'm I'm just a fan. I really appreciate this kind of architecture, and so what I really focused on with this building is this type of window, which I actually tried to recreate a window from the Collegium Maius building as well as I could. Of course, with this is Minecraft, I had to take a lot of liberties. It's not very recognizable, but I think the spirit is there. And I will show you the actual picture of the window now on the screen. And oh, this is another thing that I really appreciated when I saw this in real life recently during a walk, is those little arches you can see on the top of the window. This is what I was talking about. This is the subtle way that this window is made super interesting instead of this boring rectangle. And however many ornaments you add around the rectangular window, nothing beats this very original design that they went with here. And of course, most of the windows of this building aren't like that. Most of them are rectangular, and that I also recreated that on my build. But those beautiful windows on the front side of the building is something I really appreciated. It is actually what inspired me to make this whole build. Uh, yeah, also another inspiration, if we're talking about inspirations, is the YouTube channel Man of Dutch that I really recommend. It's this great builder that usually builds using the Conquest Reforged mod pack, but one of his shorts on his YouTube channel that I saw depicts a very beautiful scene from the actually recreated the painting from Vermeer, which is the little alley. The painting is called, and he does use the Conquest Reforged mod pack there. But I am a fan of how this turned out, and I was actually inspired also by that short to create something out of brick. But but I of course tried to do it in vanilla Minecraft instead of using any mod pack, because I think that I am a fan of this challenge that vanilla Minecraft building gives you sometimes. So you have to experiment a little bit with all those blocks that you are given. So this is you can call it the front. So this is the first part of the build that I created. So I really focused on those window designs. Also, I wanted to talk about the roof design here. I came up with this interesting pattern of glass panes placed on top of the color gradient made with full blocks. And I really like the effect that it gives, because the color gradient, the further you go, the color gradient is less visible. And also, of course, from the front side, it is less visible than from top, where you can see parts of the blocks fully shown, not covered by the glass. But the thing that makes usually glass panes very difficult to work with, the weird connectivity that they've got with blocks, actually I think is a very nice way they play into this build, because here on the roof, if you go a little further, the little rectangular pattern that they create actually resembles roof tiles a lot, to me at least. So I think it's another great bonus that I think adds to the nice vibe that this roof gives off, and I'm proud of this design actually. Someone probably came up with that before me, but still, I am very happy with how it turned out, and if I was inspired by someone, it was purely coincidental. And another thing I wanted to appreciate, if we take a look at this part of the building, I wanted to take a look at this beautiful acacia tree, because, well, it is okay in Minecraft. The representation of it is as good as I managed to make it today. But I want to appreciate the actual acacia tree that grows by the actual Collegium Maius building, because this is also something that I noticed, not actually on the walk around the city that I had back then several weeks ago. Actually, I saw it on the Google Street View quite recently when I was researching for the build, and I really fell in love with this tree. I don't know. This is this beautiful piece of nature that just grows from this tiny corner of the city. In here it is surrounded by greenery, but in actuality it just grows from this corner between big buildings in a city. This is usually in real life. This is a street where people walk around, a very tourist filled street. This is another row of buildings. There are buildings also this way. So this is like this very tiny corner between them, and this very interesting looking acacia tree. Just I don't know. I really appreciate this little tree. I really hope it's still there because I didn't notice it on my walk there. So I really hope it's still hanging in there. And I tried to recreate it as well as I could because I couldn't leave this place without this beautiful tree. I think it belongs here. And again, it is something that is very modern. This acacia isn't even 100 years old. Probably it just grew out there some time ago, and it's not part of the historic building. But it is part of the vibe of the city that I get when I walk there, and this is what I wanted to capture. So this is the side of the building that also is inspired by the Collegium Maius in real life, but only this wall, because this is the bridge that is there. This is these parts also are inspired by the real life building. Also, of course, much more much tighter because everything here is smaller. As I said, only the brick part with those windows is uh, moderately kept to scale. Everything else is squeezed a little bit, but this is the part that is not inspired by Krakow at all. Version for this building from another town in this region, from Tarnów, and especially this gable design I took from the house of Mikołajowski, I think. It is one of those very old buildings, Renaissance buildings around the Gothic cathedral that they have there. And I really like this little corner that it creates back in real life, where behind this giant church there's this little house that is the oldest house in the whole city, and it creates this very nice little alley that I didn't recreate in its entirety, but I just wanted to put a little piece of it in my building because I think the vibe of this little alley here is very similar. This alley here in real life, the one that is on on this side of the Collegium Maius is actually the Estreicher corner. Estreicher was the a very prominent. I think there were a couple of people in the Stryker family that were very well known in Krakow in the first half of the 20th century. They were active in the cultural life of the city. They were uh, active mostly as historians, I think, and also scholars and so on, and rich, famous people from the city that promoted the local culture. So it's fitting that this little corner around the university got its name after them or after one of them. And I wanted to take a closer look at those little buttons because, first of all, I think it's a very nice way to give some more texture to your brick building, because the brick block in Minecraft is quite limited. Let's be honest. There is only one texture of the bricks, and it's very nice, don't get me wrong, but it's repeated, so you need to break it up somehow to make it work on any kind of large wall. So I, of course, created texture with all those little different types of blocks up here and down there. which I think works really well, but another way to add texture to your brick walls is definitely the use of those buttons. And actually the buttons, the mangrove buttons especially, that stand out from afar, that are a little darker than the wall around them, uh, are actually inspired also by some buildings in Tarnów. Not this particular one, but there are a couple of buildings which are probably usually from the 19th century as far as I know. But still, I wanted to capture a vibe. This is an eclectic build. This isn't any historical recreation or anything. So I was inspired by those buildings that have this very interesting, intricate kind of brick design where most of the bricks are flat and orange, just regular red bricks that you use in those buildings, but some of them stand out and are probably they aren't bricks. They are probably some kind of rock or something like that, which is with those irregular polished sides that bulge out of the building here and there that create this very beautiful texture. And you can find it on many different buildings in that towns. And I really liked it when I saw it during my visit there. And I don't know, I just wanted to give a little bit of that to my build here. So now let's take a look at the backside, which is the least interesting one. You can see the wall that is based on best that is based on the actual city walls that are still intact in Krakow, and this wall here is purely fictional. I just created a blank brick wall and created those tiny little slit windows because of course this is the part that is exposed to the enemy attack or something like that. I I said this isn't any historically realistic build, but I still wanted to make it a little plausible. Like, if you have this wall with those little arrow slits that are there actually, I think it's only fitting that the wall of the building that is exposed to the outside would also have those little buildings, those little windows that would help with the defense of all of this. So yeah, I think the last part of the build that I want to showcase is the inside. I didn't actually build any interiors, but I created, of course, the famous courtyard. If you know something about the Collegium Maius, if you heard about it, you probably saw the courtyard because it's the most famous part of the building. And I didn't have nearly as much space as it takes in real life because the whole building is at least twice larger, or maybe even more than twice larger than what I built here. It probably, like, imagine this building here, this part that is actually a little bit realistic, make it a little longer, and then each wall is two of those buildings long and one full building like this wide. So this would be the actual size uh, of the Collegium Maius if I wanted to recreate it faithfully in Minecraft, based on this on the proportions of the front wall. Because of course everything in Minecraft needs to be a little larger than in real life. Because if we were to measure it as in 1 block equals 1 meter, then yes, it would be smaller, but you couldn't capture any detail and it would feel even smaller in the game than it feels in real life, definitely. So you need to make things larger, probably 1.5 up to 2 times larger metrically than in real life. So what I meant by all of that is that this courtyard is like this very tiny essence of what it is like to be in the real courtyard. But I really think I managed to capture just a little bit, that tiny bit of the actual essence of the place. I tried to capture as many details as possible. Of course, the famous archers, which were actually these are in real life in the original building. These are the original arches that you can find there. These are the original Renaissance arches, right? Created in the 16th century, I think, during a renovation, or maybe even 15th century. I'm not sure, but definitely Renaissance. And those here were actually the inspirations for the arches, the more famous one, I think, at least for foreign tourists, from the cloth house in the city square. I think I mentioned the cloth house at the beginning. It used to have those wooden market stalls all around it, which weren't very beautiful, which weren't very pretty. It also, of course, it was a Renaissance building from the start. It had all those roof ornaments that were very uh, characteristic of the Renaissance style, but it didn't have all those arches around it during its construction and for many years. And in the 19th century, during the time where the Austrians tried to, the Austrian government of Krakow then tried to demolish some of the older buildings to make place for newer city spaces. Instead of that, the community around those buildings that arose in Krakow decided to renovate the cloth house and added this beautiful arch design that was inspired or basically taken exactly from the courtyard of the university building. And the one you can find here is the Renaissance original. And there are a couple of other interesting things that you can spot around here. I tried to create all those little kinds of stairs and balconies and the windows that are, some of them are taller, some of them are wider. Not, most of them aren't very similar to one another, which is also how it is in real life. Also with the door, this one is a little smaller than this one, and this one is also, this one has wood around it, right? And these windows are blue and tall, and these windows are smaller, and there are those tiny little windows. And if you look at the photos of the actual courtyard, it is very much similar to what it looks like in real life because it's the patchwork of all those different uh, elements because the whole courtyard is encompassed by all those little separate buildings that each one of them has little different architectural quirks that you can all see from the inside of the courtyard here. So I think I did a pretty okay job at capturing that. And with that, I think we're done with the tour. I hope it wasn't too long and too boring, but I wanted to just ramble about all those little tiny things that I'm interested about with the architecture of mainly with the architecture that I see uh, in real life, but also of the things that I just managed to kind of capture in Minecraft and what to also showcase what you can do with creating those realistic buildings in Minecraft to when you try to recreate something from the real life that you know and love. I think it's a great way to appreciate the game as well. So yeah, thank you for listening to that, and hopefully see you in another video at some point in the future, maybe. I don't know.